Hi Abigail, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Abigail Houseman. I am the Beyond Bronte Senior Coordinator for Screen Yorkshire. It's Beyond Bronte's the Mayor's Screen Diversity Programme now, because we're funded by the Mayor of West Yorkshire. And so yeah, so that's sort of how I'm linked into the film and TV industry. It's a training programme, has sort of training sessions, placements and mentorship sort of rolled into it. And I also help out with some of the other stuff Screen Yorkshire does whenever needed. Always an extra pair of hands.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I wanted to interview you because of doing all these training programs, and it's quite it veers from the path of the traditional sense of going to university and getting a degree and then going into filmmaking. But I would just want to get your opinion on the traditional path versus training routes.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of a big discussion at the moment, especially because the cost of like higher education, going to a college or going to like doing a university programme, it's a lot of upfront cost, even though you can get bursaries or like student finance. Mm-hmm. You still have to pay that back. There's still like a debt element involved.
Yeah.
So it's become a big question for a lot of young people, but also a lot of people who maybe want to change paths, maybe want to change careers. I think there's a lot of studies saying that especially millennials and younger and Gen Z, you don't have the traditional, I'm going to have a career for 30 years, I'm going to work in the same place. So a lot of people are considering maybe doing something a bit more creative, trying to find that kind of fulfilling career. So all of this links into, do you go and get a film degree or a TV production degree? And I think it feels like a bit of a cop-out answer, but it really does depend like on the individual and what you want from it.
Yeah.
If you live sort of close to a big city like Bradford, for example, there will be a uni or an under college there that do film and TV courses. So you don't necessarily have to move away from home, but if you want that wider element of like making new friends, giving new things a go, having a space where for 3 years-ish, or maybe 2 years if it's a part like a college course, you just focus on the creative side. You don't have to have any other you don't necessarily have to have any other worries. Yeah. It can be really advantageous. You can meet a lot of like-minded people. You can, have it's a full experience, I guess, that you're paying for at the end of the day. And like getting involved with other societies, and if they've got a TV society, like maybe doing a bit of that, or like a filmmaking one, like the whole experience. Whereas, but if the question is, do you need one? Like, is it really, really relevant? And are people looking for that when they're looking at job applications or CVs? My answer would be no.
Okay.
It's which I think is kind of like, some people are kind of surprised by it. They're like, oh, but for like, if I want to work in finance, I need a sort of maths or a finance degree. Yeah. Whereas I feel like film and TV, and that's even going for like, even if you want like a broadcaster job, like a job maybe at the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, what they're looking for is enthusiasm, transferable skills if you've got them, which we talk about so much in my role. I'm always banging on about them. You will be very bored of it by now. But yeah, enthusiasm, transferable skills, some kind of, especially for on-set roles, a kind of sense that you've got some common sense, I guess, and just are willing to like get stuck in and have the skills that are relevant for that role at that time, or for that specific job. So they're not necessarily going, okay, graduates are like above people who haven't got a degree. It is a good way to indicate like, hi, I'm clearly interested in this, I've clearly pursued this as a career. But as you said, there are alternative training options to kind of indicate that.
So would you say that experience would be, so say you did a degree for 4 years, but you've had on somebody else's experience for 4 years in a specific space of filmmaking, would that person who has experience have something over the person with a degree?
Potentially, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, experience, if you can say, I've worked on a set already, I know what's expected of me, that is sort of weighted. And even if it's like you're applying for a film role, but you've worked in TV, I think even then, it's seen as, like, well, at least you've worked on a set, you know how that kind of works.
Yeah.
You've worked with the crews of different ages as well, or different experience levels. You can kind of navigate that quite well if you've had like a couple of years of experience.
It shows them that you already know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I feel like a negative side of that is like nepotism aspect of filmmaking, because that's a big thing, I feel like, in filmmaking.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I think it's interesting because it's talked about a lot. It seems to be a really key concern for so many people that I don't know anyone, therefore that's it. I can't get in. You know, I don't want to pick on a Chris Nolan's cousin, son's best friend. Like, they know someone, they can kind of use that to their advantage and get onto sets easily. But also, I feel like what I hear from a lot of people on those sets is actually there's certain things about whether or not they're treated the same as other cast members, other crew members, but they're still being judged on, can they do the job? Yeah. Are they kind of maybe a bit arrogant? But also I feel like they then also feel pressure because they know that they're in this privileged position. They know that if they mess up, everyone will be like, oh, well, clearly I only got the job because of X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. And I think there are ways to make those connections, network. I don't want to panic anybody by saying that. But there are ways to find other people find people who are maybe the step above you, to learn from them, but also just like say, hi, I'm free and available, here's my CV. I think it's one of the things that maybe isn't well known, but actually you can send your CV out to production companies. They are kind of expecting you to just to be like, hi, you've got any work? I'm a new runner into the industry, but I'm really excited to get started. Here's my CV, just keep it on file if you've got anything. And they're not going to be like, how dare you send me? How have this back? Like they're kind of, if you go to like the mega indies that have like, are like very well established and like making really big sort of shows, they may even have a talent department whose entire job it is to like manage that input. And going to things like it was Leeds Film Festival like a couple of weeks ago. Aesthetica is in York, I believe. Sheffield's got Dogfest. There's a lot of stuff that happens in Bradford around the city of film. Yeah. So going to those events, saying hi, saying hi to the people who are sat around you as well, because they're also clearly keen about to get into the industry, or and if you are on a training course, staying in touch with the people who are there, because those peers will eventually become the people who are hiring, or will know the people who are hiring. And so I think there is it's a real concern about nepotism in the industry, but I don't think it should put anyone off. I personally don't think it's, especially up in Yorkshire, it's not necessarily as big of an issue as maybe in the bigger hubs. Yeah, LA, the hub of London, depending on where you are. Like and it happens less on those smaller programs than like if you're on like a Marvel or a DC film, which obviously like huge.
So you mentioned City of Film Bradford, and I know that you guys are based in Leeds here. I don't know how much you know about like the City of Film and like UNESCO naming it City of Film. I think it's the first City of Film in the world, Bradford is. Do you think that makes a difference on people who are trying to get into industry, with Bradford being a city film compared to something like Leeds?
I think that it adds a certain kudos to it. Like, it clearly shows that Bradford is a hub that people should be paying attention to, and you know, it just adds sort of a banner to say, to like production coming in, like, we're a city of film, like clearly you want to be filming here. And yeah, so I don't know how much like about the UNESCO side of it much, although I did used to work in heritage previously. Maybe I should know a bit more about it than I do. But I think it just proves that it's a good it's a good place to film, and it's a good place if you're looking to get into film in GB. It's a good place to base yourself, because not only is there so much happening in Bradford, but there's also like links to Leeds, links to Wakefield, or up into Halifax. Like, there's a lot of other stuff. Like, it's access to the sort of wider West Yorkshire and then broader Yorkshire filming scene, I guess.
So my next question is going to be about filming in like the West Yorkshire regions. There are big productions like Peaky Blinders, The Witcher, The Crown even come in here to film. And I feel like the crew, the call-outs are always, they're not as much bringing people from West Yorkshire rather than they're bringing people in from the south to film. And is that a big issue, and how are we going to tackle that to get more people in West Yorkshire working on these big productions? Yeah,
it is what kind of happens with those big maybe Netflix dramas, but also stuff like recently the Marvel production that came up. A lot of people
Secret Invasion
text in and go, how do I get on it, how I want to meet Samuel L. Jackson, and as we all do, and but they do have, because especially if they are based in America, like Netflix's production like is mainly based over there, they will then basically have their production companies, mainly are London-based companies. They crew up down south, and predominantly, especially if they're filming majority down south, in London and the southeast, if they're only filming a couple of days up here, they will just pick up their crew, and because they've got the money to pay for accommodation and travel, they will just pay for them to have like a day or two up here, which then just provide for our local crews. They're going, but I want to work on the big thing. I don't want to have to go, like, the whole thing is I don't want to go necessarily to go down south to have to work. There are sometimes smaller roles that are available, or like not necessarily all stuff that's like Yorkshire specific. So I'm thinking maybe like a daily runner role, or on that specific roles, like a location manager, where a knowledge of the local area comes in really useful. So then they might be credited as like location manager brackets Yorkshire. They might have like their location scouts and stuff. So there is occasionally some roles that do come up, but also they can't say, hey, Marvel production coming up in a couple of weeks, because of the sheer amount of interest they get. It wouldn't be worth it for them to advertise it.
That's what use fake names and stuff like that.
So a couple of things that actually I'm talking to at the moment for like placements, even though they're not necessarily like a Marvel or a Netflix or a DC, they still, their titles are redacted, so they're like untitled production Y or production company project. Like it's all just to protect the
amount of stuff coming in.
And also, like, they don't, then maybe if they're filming something specific, they don't want people pitching up at the location. Like, if it's got someone, an actor or an actress attached to it who's quite a big name, they might not want people just pitching up to be like, hey, can I have a selfie while you're in this like really heated dramatic scene. But yeah, so I think it is interesting. I think if you're wanting to get into either film or TV and I want to work on a set, I think about it in terms of, I would like this role, as in runner, production assistant, or maybe think about where you want to go a little bit higher up, like do you want to go down the production office route? Do you want to go down an AD route? Or do you want to do like a technical skill or something? And work from there rather than working from, I want to work on X productions.
Yeah.
And then trying to like reverse engineer how you can get onto that. Because if that opportunity does arise, then if you've worked on getting the skills in those roles, you're in such a good position to then apply and like sort of find yourself onto something like whatever the next Peaky Blinders will be, whatever the next Killing Eve might be, even though that film's down south, but you know what I mean, like those big names.
No, I feel like because show business is very glamorous.
Yeah.
So there are people that just want to go the glamour out and be like, I want to be known to be working this way rather than working. But you have to still put your work in to be able to have that opportunity. Exactly,
and it's the bad parts of it. They're glamorous, you know. I went to go see The Duke the other day, and Screen Yorkshire's name came up, and I was like, oh look, that's the company I work for. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. But that is like a minute compared to even the amount of work that you have to do on like a training scene or something. Mm-hmm. The amount of hours you put in on a set, the amount of logistics you do, and I think, and I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but all jobs, when you boil them down, basically amount to admin, at least a little bit, and there will be some admin, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It's just a fact of this world. But if you, especially for things like in those craft skills, so costume, makeup and hair, art departments, or even like the technical skills, camera, lighting, if you love them, mm-hmm. if you're like that makes you happy and you do it maybe on the weekend as a hobby, then you know it's not like every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows, but you will enjoy more time, you will enjoy your job more than necessarily like if you were in an office environment and
you feel like you're doing what you love. Even if you're doing admin, you're still working towards something
even
you love.
if it can make you pull your hair out sometimes, like it makes up for it. But I think people see film and TV and they're like, oh, I will be on the red carpet, Oscars will line my whole way, and actually a lot of the time you might not necessarily get that. You might not even see your name in the credits on screen because they have, like, especially for TV shows, they've got a limited amount of time that they can like put up credits for. But you get the satisfaction of being like, I worked on that. Or you like link in your IMDb. It's more of like a professional pride than you will be a Chris Nolan.
Just Nolan.
You might be. I'm not saying you can't be. Like, have those dreams if you want them, but also make sure that you're doing it not for the fame necessarily, but because you love like directing.
Yeah. Because it's very blurry line to see who is doing it for what, isn't it? Because there's two sides of trying to get there. And I find it really interesting what you mentioned earlier about people from the south needing location manager here, because that would be like a huge part of it. If you're from the south, you'd want a location manager wherever you're going. I never saw it from that point of view before.
No, and I think people don't know that like so many roles exist.
Yeah, there's so many.
You hear about like directors, producers, writers. They get like that they when you do like go to an event that's being put on, they'll be like, oh, directed season 4 of The Crown. You're like, oh my god. You don't see Key Grip isn't necessarily on the stage talking as well, but there is, so like if you sit and watch a credits of it, like the big films or like anything really, there are so many names on there, and they're
10 minutes long, just rolling credits.
Yeah, and you know, like I think some roles are maybe a bit misunderstood as well. So researcher, I think people see researcher and go, oh well, I love history, and so they must need loads of researchers on historical films, when in fact actually from what I understand, a lot of that research is done by individual departments. So the art department will do like research on like how did labels on coffee look like in this period. The costume department will look at the costume from the time. Whereas in fact researchers are found much more in factual programming, which is like, can be anything from the news, like really hard-hitting documentaries, to entertainment shows. Shiny Floor, Paddy McGuinness, Ollie Murs hosted. But you need research on questions, and you need research on cast, and you need research logistics about like accommodation. Can we film here? What like logistically do we need? If we're doing a show about something like really specific, like a specific job role, what do they actually do? What's gonna interest a person watching it? What's gonna make them want to watch it? So I think some roles, because they're kind of labelled one way, people can get kind of confused, like not a bit confused about what they are exactly, and so that's where your research really comes in.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And yeah, like you said, there are so many jobs, and I feel like people that watch Marvel movies and stuff where they make you wait the whole credits. Like you'll be waiting there for ages. Yeah.
And you're kind of forced to, unless you're like immediately switch on your phone, you're kind of forced to try and read all the names, and it's quite fun to be like 18 stunt people and all of these different things, and the different locations as well, like the brackets Georgia, brackets London, Reykjavik.
So it's huge. Yeah. Okay, so one of my last questions is going to be about, so taking it back to the beginning, we talked about traditional routes versus training routes, and you talking about how you work in Beyond Brontes, and there are lots of different training schemes around. Which ones would you recommend for somebody who's trying to get, it's a pretty hard question because there are different kinds of jobs you want to go into.
Yeah, I think that is the thing. It's do a little bit of research on like where you might want to go, a little bit, just to give you a kind of guiding point. But there are so many that are out there at the moment, and a lot of different people, like different organisations running them. So if you kind of want to go into TV, Channel 4, their 4 Skills is based up here, so they're doing a lot of work, especially around digital content at the moment as well, and stuff that goes onto social media. That seems to be, but also they've done recently a documentary on what would happen, like looking at if a Premiership footballer came out as gay, and that's only available on their streaming service. So it's kind of also looking at making stuff that's only online focused, not necessarily going on a broadcast. So they're kind of doing a lot of skills work. So 4 Skills is their overarching thing. I look at Screen Skills. They're the national training body. They're funded by the BFI, and basically the website has a whole host of stuff on it, from job roles, as you were saying, to like help you kind of understand what each role does, but then also they give a lot of information at the bottom of their page about, right, okay, you've seen this role, you've read about it, you want to do it, how do you get there? What should you do? And they've also got like training opportunities that come up. Their trainee finder comes up every year, I think, and they it's a training scheme, but also they do quite long placements on it with partner organisations, many of whom are the big stuff, the the crowns of this world.
Yeah, we spoke about Screen Skills earlier, and how some of the courses can be like upwards from £2,000. Yeah. So and places like the National Film and Television School, because they've got that pedigree of being, the National Film and Television School, that's quite an accolade. Yeah. And they have, very experienced people come in to do these training sessions. They can be quite pricey. But one of the ways that, if you look at that and your kind of heart stops, one of the ways that maybe you can help fund that is Screen Skills have a bursary system, which you just apply to. You don't have to pay it back. It's not a loan. It's a sort of grant, and you can apply for training courses through that, as well as for things like equipment as well. If you want, for example, if you wanted to go into hair and makeup, a lot of the time you have to have your own kit with you and take that round from job to job. So if you wanted to fund for some of that, Screen Skills bursaries are a really good option to have a look at. Awesome.
Yeah. But there's a couple of other organisations around here. So The Screen Industries Growth Network, SIGN, they're based out of York University. They kind of skew more academic, but they do training courses. They've got lecture training offer. Film Hub North often have roundtable discussions, meetups for like producer, directors, writers. So if you are wanting to go into sort of filmmaking, especially sort of independent filmmaking, head over to their website because it's really good. They're also funded by the BFI. All roads lead back to the BFI at some point. But yeah, there are so many. The BBC has their apprenticeship scheme. They have talent pools open that you can sort of apply to, and your CV is in a pool, and if they have a job going, they may pull your CV out and say, hey, we've got something for you.
ITV do the same, don't they, as well?
Yeah, so they've got like, especially for their soaps, Emmerdale, and like Coronation Street as well, if you're sort of closer to Manchester. They've got theirs as well, and yeah, there's just a whole host of stuff. So once you start sort of looking at it, and also there's things like if we link back into the universities and colleges, they might do a night classes thing, they might do part-time courses, so you don't necessarily have to commit to full-time if you can't. They've got a sort of a wide range of options, so there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's just kind of having a look and sort of sifting through
all the back to research.
Yeah, and trying to grab every opportunity you see that like excites you, because you might as well do it and you know, try and build that sort of forward momentum while you're still excited by it.
I feel like there's so many opportunities around, like you just named like so many, but from like an agent's kind of standpoint, I feel like there's like a stereotype from like with like, so with me it's like at home it was told like there's nothing for like you, there's only like traditional routes for like working and stuff, and it kind of sets a precedent. Like I don't feel like it's very clear, like especially like in secondary school, that there is lots and lots of opportunities if you want to be a filmmaker and if you want to work in film.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like people like my parents, they don't know about all of these opportunities, and they don't know like there is a clear route to filmmaking and stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like it should be much clearer.
Yeah, and there is kind of a push from places like Screen Schools and the NHS and things to get into schools basically and sort of shout about the opportunities, because what we need, there are skills shortages at the moment of certain roles, especially sort of in a mid-senior level, because previously we haven't got those people coming in who, so then there's not a mid-level, so then suddenly the people at entry level aren't quite ready to step up yet, and there's kind of ends up in a bit of a backlog. I think the concern for people like family members or even friends is it going to be a viable career? Like freelancing aren't you going to be on the edge? Aren't you they want that kind of steady income, but it can be. Oftentimes the start is kind of the toughest bit, which is really annoying, because a lot of people go in and it is quite difficult to kind of keep that momentum sometimes, but also we've seen people who they have their first runner role and that's it, they're off. They're because they network on sets and they talk to everybody just saying, oh, by the way, I'm free after this, like what are you going on to, do they need an extra pair of hands, all that sort of stuff. But it can be a viable career. Like people do it clearly because we've got an industry around it, and you don't necessarily, if that is a concern, if you want to work in the industry, think about roles like at the broadcasters, or think about roles at production companies maybe, or at like sort of adjacent careers. So maybe being the videographer for Bradford Council is not your dream job. It's not where you want to end up, but it's a way of having a sort of steady income for a little bit of time so that you can build up the experience, so stepping stones, you can then move on to doing stuff on a freelance level. So there's so many ways of doing this. There's no like correct way. And I'm going to mention Screen Schools again because I always do. They have a fantastic freelancer toolkit on their website, which I'd highly recommend people look if that is a concern for them, because it kind of takes you through how you can do this and how you can make it a career.
Cool. I feel like because there's so many ways to do it, that's why there's so much mystery around it.
Yeah.
Because if there was one way to do it, then everybody would tell you that one way.
Yeah.
Because there's so many ways, there's just mystery that's shrouded around it.
Yeah.
Which is like a chicken and egg kind of situation.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. We're trying to solve it with all the training and all the information, but it is one of the things that as soon as once you're kind of into the industry, you kind of are like, oh, there's all this stuff. But then if you're outside, you're like, where is everything? So it is something that, that's why we're working with, through our Connected Campus initiative at Green Yorkshire, connecting in to universities and colleges to connect them into the industry. So why there's such a push to go talk to schools and things like that, and also just to talk to the wider community as well about the industry, because we know that it can kind of be difficult to navigate at first because there is just so much information out there. Yeah. It can be hard to pass through sometimes. Awesome.
Well, it was brilliant talking to you today. Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you. It's very educating.
Thank you for having me. It's been brilliant.